I don't know how many of you put yourself through Piers Morgan Uncensored last night, but Candace Owens gave him an unmerciful pasting, and it was an absolute joy to watch. It was on the topic of Western imperialism generally, I suppose. Candace was making the point that Americans are sick of sending their sons and daughters to fight foreign wars for oligarchs and Israel, specifically Benjamin Netanyahu. And Piers Morgan comes across as the Atlanticist that he is, you know, on the sinking ship of Western imperialism with a little saucepan, frantically trying to throw out water, screaming simultaneously at a load of seagulls asking them to condemn Hamas. And it just feels like the whole infrastructure of Western imperialist hegemony is just collapsing around this man. And what a perfect man to be in the middle of that shit show. Throughout this interview, Candace Owens asks Piers Morgan a really, really straightforward question. Hey Piers, can you give me one thing, just one example of something that the US gets from this toxic, I would say, relationship with Israel? We can all see what the Israelis get. Oh my goodness. But what does the US get, you know, from being absolutely tethered to this rogue state? And Piers Morgan can come up with nothing, not a single thing that the Americans are getting out of sending billions in aid to this rogue state every year so that they can not just fight their endless wars, but that they can have free healthcare. It just feels like the whole narrative is falling apart. It's very, very beautiful to watch.
You still haven't given me anything other than like you guys get a pat on the back for supporting this created nation in the Middle East. I also just like to say all of the bad things that we have gotten because of our continued relation with Israel. First and foremost, the open borders. And you can relate to this. People in the UK, they just can't seem to connect the dots.
All right.
Oh my gosh, what's happening here?
Let me get a word in.
But I want to...
Let me get a word in, love. Piers Morgan is telling Candace Owens, let me get a word in. Like, can you believe the hypocrisy of this man? Actually, on that, I'm about to say something positive about a Zionist. I'm about to be on a Zionist side. Just a quick side note. Recently, in an interview with that just insanely rabid Zionist lawyer, Natasha Hausdorff, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, I actually felt she was right. I felt that she was treated really poorly by Piers Morgan. He was really rude to her. We couldn't hear the mad, insane ramblings of a rabid Zionist who looks like the kind of person who would boil children for lunch. And I think it's classic Piers being a terrible journalist and a terrible interviewer, because the best way to hit Zionists is just let them speak. If you let a Zionist speak, what they say is so obnoxious, so insane, and so inhumane that they destroy their own arguments, they destroy their own position. Don't shout them down, Piers.
We don't understand where all these refugees are coming from. Oh my God, where are all these refugees coming from? Who's funding them coming over into these borders? Well, this is what you get when you keep supporting these nonstop wars, when you keep bombing where these people live. And it's not even just a conspiracy, by the way. If you're like, oh, well
actually,
you know,
I mean, you're wrong about this, because the vast majority of people coming into the UK illegally are not coming from war-torn countries in the Middle East. They're actually economic migrants.
He's just claimed that the vast majority of migrants coming into Britain, right, are economic migrants. Now, I don't know if Piers has access to Google, right, or if any of you guys do. You can go online, you can see Home Office reports, put the statistics at about 15 to 20% annually are economic, what you might describe as an economic migrant. It's very, very hard to get cold and hard facts on this, but likelihood is the stats are about 15 to 20%. And then about 80% are what you would call migrants escaping war, persecution of some description. Piers is claiming actually that the most of them are just like on the make in Britain. Wow, that's a journalist with presumably access to the internet.
I mean,
okay.
So that's not true.
Okay, but let's connect that. When you say economic migrants, are we talking about like
people who literally want to come to the UK for a better life?
And when Gaddafi was heading up Libya and the country was on the up and up and he was working with the United Nations, and then all of a sudden he warned that if you collapse Libya and turn it into a place where refugees are escaping, that this is going to be your problem, Europe. He warned that. So then it actually happened. And now we're just calling them economic migrants. We're going to pretend
I'm not
that we had
talking
nothing
about
to
people
do.
coming from Libya.
Okay, where are you speaking about?
Well, for example, I think it was last year, a third of all the people who came into the UK on the border on the small boats illegally, it turned out were young economic migrant males from Albania, which last time I checked, we hadn't invaded.
Oh, wow, Piers. So either here now Piers is a slap his head off the wall idiot, or he's being deliberately disingenuous. He's deliberately lying. I think he's a liar, guys. I think he's doing a bit of lying. So he must know that that's not from last year, by the way. That's in 2022. There was a disproportionate spike in economic migrants from Albania. But he must know that the following year, and for the last couple of years, it has reverted to its normal statistical range of about 15 to 20% economic migrants, and the rest fleeing wars and persecution largely created by US and British imperialism. He must know this.
So look, let me pull you back to something you said, which has caused a lot of controversy.
I can't believe he's just lied on his show, just openly just lied, to try and frame the whole thing as if, Candace Owens, all these foreign wars, Western imperialism creating refugees. No, mate, they're actually all economic migrants just wanting the British money and the American money. Like, what a disgraceful human being to position yourself as a journalist and just lie to us all on your show.
Something you said, which has caused a lot of controversy, which is this issue of dishonorable discharge. Let's take a listen.
I do believe that if war in Iran is on the agenda, and that appears so, get dishonorably discharged. Who cares? Who cares? Why should you go die in a foreign land? You now have the benefit of 2020. You can see, think about those men and those women who died because they were pitched that they were serving their country because there were weapons of mass destruction, right? They were serving their country because the Taliban, they were serving their country, whatever, and these people gave up their lives. And ask yourselves, for what? And the answer to that question is for the elites. They're like toy soldiers.
When you said that, were you aware of the repercussions if people dishonorably discharged?
So
this is just astonishing now. So Piers feels like he's got a gotcha coming up here because he's presumably got back access to the internet. He's on Google and he's found out the repercussions for dishonorable discharge, and he's going to hand Candace the riot act here now. But unfortunately, she comes in with just the most irrefutable arguments for why, whatever the consequences are, it's not a good idea to send your kids out to die in foreign wars for billionaires anymore. Those days hopefully are over, Piers.
Just to put this into context, this is like the Q&A, live Q&A portion at the end of my show. And being facetious, but also being completely honest, that they should begin to consider, and that was somebody asking, what should we do? Like, should we leave the military? Because they also
do you regret
are recognizing that? No, I don't regret saying that. I don't regret
you know the repercussions if you do discharge dishonorably.
Okay, well, I would imagine that the people that are in the military who were going to, if they were going to listen to my podcast and they were going to dishonorably discharge, that they would know the consequences. So it's completely ridiculous. And again, we see this over and over again where people can't answer the broader questions. They try to suddenly peg in, well, you said this one thing. No, the broader conversation that we are having.
Candace, it's not a small thing.
No, let me finish.
I mean, this is just such a perfect example of the Piers phenomenon, the Piers angle. Let's get really hysterical about Candace Owens on a podcast talking about dishonorable discharge. Let's get hysterical about that. But let's, as she so beautifully says, but let's not look at the broader picture at all of sending young men and women out to die in foreign wars that they believe so sadly, so cruelly they believe is for the great nation of America or to keep the world safe or whatever, as opposed to line the pockets of billionaires or to keep an absolute psychopath in Tel Aviv happy. How dare he?
You're encouraging
Piers,
US servicemen and women to dishonorably discharge.
You play a clip and I'm trying to answer it. You know, you can't do that. You ask a question.
Well, you're trying to downplay it.
And I'm responding. No, I am. No, you're trying to upplay it is what the issue is. This is exactly.
I'm just repeating what you said.
No, you're not. You're playing what I said, and I'm responding to it and telling you that the broader piece of that conversation, when you have troops that are now asking that question, is they are recognizing that America is in steep decline, that our military comes back and they are treated like dirt, that a lot of these men, and we're talking about decades, white American males come back and they're told that they're racist and they're treated like crap, that they're white supremacists, that they have a different vision for this country. So why are they dying in these overseas wars for Bibi Netanyahu? Okay, and let me again try to answer that question that I asked you at the beginning, which is, what has Zionism won America?
I'm not
What
keep
have
coming
these
back
never
to the
ending?
same thing.
No.
I'm not going to come back to the same thing, which I've never answered throughout this whole interview. Tell you one thing, I don't agree with her on probably a lot, but I have an awful lot of respect for Candace Owens. I really feel like somebody who maybe is conservative or on the right, who has the balls and the integrity to challenge what she believes to be completely hypocritical and not in her own country's interests. I have so much more respect for somebody like that than I do a wet fish like Keir Starmer.
Let me finish. Why won't you let me answer that? Why won't you let me actually say what people are recognizing? You come back and there are open borders and you're told that you are racist, okay? You come back and you're told that you are racist if you don't want open borders. Meanwhile, you're sent overseas to defend Israel's borders. It's a nonsense. And who's funding these open borders? According to Barry Weiss, and I quote, Barry Weiss said this verbatim, the Jewish connection to the refugee is not a conspiracy. That's something that we are very proud of. And she was referencing the organization HIAS, and she says it explicitly, which she said what was started by them in the 1880s, which includes immigrants that have come in like Sergey Brin. They are still the organization that is operating at our border right now, okay? That is problematic, that we have open borders while we continually and routinely are told that we have to defend somebody else's borders, okay? And again, these never-ending wars in the Middle East at the behest of Israel. Bibi Netanyahu was the one that called for Americans to invade Iraq, Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, and now Iran, and we've done it. We're told Israel can defend itself, okay? But why do we have currently 2,000 troops that are in Syria under the guise of fighting ISIS? And like I said, we know Israel themselves fund terror-adjacent militants like they did to overthrow Assad. And we're done with the BS of, okay, well, they weren't really involved, Israel, in Afghanistan, because even when we fight those never-ending wars, Israel wins. Everybody knows that our boys were out there in Afghanistan guarding poppy fields, okay? And do you know what happened after we allegedly, quote unquote, lost in Afghanistan? What happened to all those poppy fields, those poppy flowers that our military was guarding? Well, the opioid crisis hit America via the Sackler family, who quite literally built the School of Medicine at Tel Aviv University. So we're just done, okay? And there's no way that we're gonna go backwards. We're not going to allow you guys to emotionally condition us to go, oh, well, we gotta protect Israel because of the Holocaust. It is over. They're imparting a Holocaust. America would like off this crazy train.
I have to say, that is a beautiful 2, 3, 4 minutes from Candace Owens there. For somebody on the left, I think it's very exciting for a conservative voice like that to be so strong, to have a massive following. And it just feels like America is collectively waking up. And that is very exciting, my friends.
Okay, for the benefit of viewers who don't know...
This is brilliant. You would feel like any other journalist there under those circumstances. He's just had his arse handed to him. Like, his little, dishonorable discharge kind of angle has been destroyed by somebody who is well-read, is very clear-cut on what she's saying, and has really sort of painted the bigger picture beautifully. But Piers, shameless to the last, goes back to the dishonorable discharge and lets her know the consequences of her actions and words in her own podcast.
Okay, for the benefit of viewers who don't know what I was talking about, under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, Article 90, dishonourable discharge can result in forfeiture of all pay and allowances up to 5 years confinement.
Oh my God, that sounds awful, isn't it? That's way worse than your loved one dying for Benjamin Netanyahu in a war that makes no moral sense whatsoever.
Which is a pretty heavy penalty to pay.
Yeah, I'd want my kids to go to jail before they fought for Israel. I'll say that honestly.
Okay,
I would. I have 3 sons, and I'm going to be honest with you, Piers. I'm glad you told me that consequence. I'd take that consequence any day to them being sent back over in a coffin because they died for Israel. So.
Okay, but I think the one thing you're missing. Look, I come from a big military family, a lot of military in my family, and
oh, will you shut up about the big military family? Your brother was a serviceman. Just do another ad for creatine, will you?
A lot of people fighting wars on behalf of the United States are not doing it because they think Bibi Netanyahu wants them to. They're doing it because
some of them do that, and they write into my show and I answer the question.
But many of them won't, and they might be offended by you suggesting that's the only reason they're doing it.
They might be offended. Are we seeing more evidence of the woke right?
and they can watch your show and they can be offended all they want. But I think it's more offensive the way that our military is treated, the veterans are treated, and the gaslighting that takes place when we're told that we have to defend everybody's borders. But
I actually think America treats its veterans better than almost any country in the world.
I mean,
Piers Morgan's very happy with the way that the Americans treat their veterans, like spiraling homelessness levels and addiction levels and stuff. But yeah, he thinks that they're treated very, very well. I don't know, guys. What do you think?
If my boys were being drafted to fight this war in Iran, I would be like, you know what, honey, take the other option. And that's not because it's cowardice. It's because when you sign up for the military...
Okay, but I would say that the pilots...
you are pledging that you are doing something that is going to better your country. But Candace, and like I said, our country has been in steep decline since we have been part of this foreign policy, which is just whatever Israel wants.
Okay, but you made that point. But what I would say to you is the only people so far that have been involved from the American military were the extraordinarily courageous and skillful pilots who flew these B-2 bombers and attacked the nuclear sites and got back safely. So there's been no troops on the ground committed at all.
Get your head round this unbelievably Manichaean outlook on life. The brave pilots, the amazing pilots who went and bombed illegally in another country, but because it's Iran and it's over in there, you know, in this kind of crazy brown countries, it's totally fine from Pierce's perspective.
No declaration of war by the United States. We can quibble. Listen, I don't disagree with you. You bomb somewhere, you probably are at war with them. But there is no...
So it's kind of hard to like bomb somebody in a kind of a friendly way, like, isn't it? Just kind of like, oh, sorry, man, I just bombed you there for a laugh. We're not at war, okay?
Official declaration of war, just as Trump, when he took out Soleimani and Baghdadi and he attacked Syria and so on, he didn't declare war on those places. And actually it turned out that the apocalyptic warnings of those actions never materialized. So we shall see.
We'll see, we will indeed see, Piers. And we will see, I think, the further fragmentation of your worldview, that here in the West, we're the good guys, and over there in the brown and black countries, they're the bad guys. That, I'm so excited to say, post-Gaza particularly, feels like that narrative is finally being destroyed, and that can only be a good thing. Please support my work on Patreon, and I'll talk to you again soon.